Welcome to the space where creators have aligned a positive and intellectual collab of open minds. For sharing and learning from one another, it's a vibe. We do Rosa podcast on the mic. Subscribe, educator spitting bars. I guess you didn't know I'm multifaceted and humble, checking off life goals. The classroom is my comfort zone where I plant and sow seeds of knowledge, compassion, empathy, and hope. Reading is the key to unlocking your potential. Countless benefits, including cognitive and mental. Regardless of the genre, books are highly influential. Go get yours, I'll get mine. Making strides, monumental. Come rock with me and get down to this new jam. Reaching out to my friends, I had a very simple plan. Educate the masses through books and life lessons. It's the grand slam. I'm out. Kia ora and welcome to the Reads with Rosa podcast. Today's guest is renowned for traditional Maori weaving. He is an artist and cultural practitioner. Welcome to the show, Hone Bailey.
Kia ora, Rosa. I'm excited.
Man, it's so good to see you. How have you been? How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm really good. Things are looking up this year. So I'm excited about that. Excited for the possibility of more work and exploration within my work and socially and all of that. So
yeah, I mean, borders are opening up. I mean, I feel like everyone opened up in Japan we're still here.
Yeah, we're still here. We're waiting patiently.
We're so patient, forever patient, waiting for the state of emergency to, open up and all that. So I feel like the world's gone on without us and we're slowly getting to that point. So I'm excited to hear about that journey that is to come for you this year.
Me
but
too.
before we get into it, if you could please introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Hone Bailey, or Johnny. Some people call me Johnny. I'm from Aotearoa. My iwi is Tuwharetoa. Many other iwi affiliations, but I was raised Tuwharetoa. And I grew up actually in Waikato till I was about 13, and then my whānau moved to Hawaii. So that's where some of my family live still today. So that's a basic.
That's cool. We'll get into that more throughout the interview. And so do you still have whānau in Aotearoa, in the Waikato?
Yep. And Waikato, Taupo, Turangi.
Have you been back there? I mean, obviously pre-COVID. When was the last time you were back in Aotearoa?
Yeah, so 2019 was the last time I was home, and I typically go back frequently, 2 or 3 times a year. But when COVID happened, that sort of all stopped, and I'm actually getting ready to go in a couple of weeks, so I'm excited. I am nervous as to whether it will actually happen. I mean, there's just that nervousness, like anything could happen. But so 2019 was the last time. That was 3 years ago. I can't really believe that it's been that long. But so quite a while.
Yeah, and honestly, like the other day, we're talking about that. We're like, man, 3 years, it passed so quickly. And especially with my students who are now seniors, they've lived through the pandemic. You know what I mean? So it's just it's so crazy.
It is crazy.
Man,
unbelievable.
Unbelievable, exactly. So I was thinking about your craft, your art, Maori weaving, like where was that something you picked up in school, like back in Aotearoa? Like where does that love for Maori weaving come from? What was that first point where you were like, this is something that I absolutely treasure and love?
Yeah, so I I grew up in Kohanga Reo, and at that time, Te Reo Māori was sort of growing within the school system. And so after Kohanga Reo, I went to we were in a Rūmaki program, which is like an immersion unit within a mainstream school. So I was pretty much raised in te ao Māori within that context. So kapahaka was a large sort of part of that, and that's where you see things. Well, for me, that's where I saw things. So like piu piu and the pari, the tatua, the belts and the costumes. So that's sort of like my earliest memories of really like being sort of taken by those textiles that I saw performing. I do remember early on as a kid, like our teachers would teach us little things like weaving a headband, or we did tuku. So I do remember little things like what little things kids can do. I remember being in awe of a piu piu, because I used to think like, wow, it's so special. And not everyone had access to piu piu. Like sometimes kapahaka groups would wear other things, but not a piu piu. Not everyone could either afford them, or no one knew anyone who made them. So my family actually did have a piu piu. So, I just remember thinking they're so beautiful, and I wanted to own one and wear one one day.
So then who was your first teacher that then started teaching you like the weaving? And did you have one person in your family that kind of like took you under their wing and started showing you that?
No, I actually really wished that were the case. That time in my life, so I was about 14 when I really knew that that's something that I wanted to do, and it's something that I could do. I knew I sort of discovered that my hands love doing these sorts of things, creating, and especially things that were traditionally Māori. I felt sort of like this connection to that, and wanting to be in touch with that Māori, that I don't know how to explain. Yeah, that Māori of weaving. And so yeah, I would wish and sort of dream that someone, I'd meet someone and they'd sort of take me under their wing and, teach me, but that never happened. And but I continued to pursue it. I continued to believe in it, believe in this journey and this calling, this pull for me to be connected to this art form. So books was the first thing. So my dad came home one day. My dad is Pākehā, and I don't know how he knew, or picked up on it, but he brought home a book from the library, and it was a book called Maori Weaving. And so I would follow this book and, just study it and try to, do what the diagrams are showing. And a lot of the times I couldn't interpret the instructions. I'm a visual learner, and I can pick up things quickly if I see someone doing it, but reading was so difficult for me. So the next sort of part, or the next sort of component of my story happened. So in Hawaii there is a marae there, and there's quite a lot of Māori who reside there because of the Polynesian Cultural Centre. So me and my very close friend, childhood friend, we would on the weekends go and jump the fence into the cultural centre to to hang out with the Māori
Yeah.
kids and to sort of be around that. And there were two aunties. They knew my parents, and they would sit on at the wharepuni on the front of the wharepuni, and they would do cross stitch and mainly cross stitch and poi, things like that. So I would just go and sit and watch them, and they didn't mind that. They didn't mind me sitting there. I didn't ask any questions. For me, like growing up the way I did, I have older parents. So like I grew up like you don't ask questions, you don't like annoy people, you just sit there, you watch, you listen, and that's just what I did, and they let me do it. And I wouldn't ask them blatantly, can you show me?
Right.
But I'm sort of like inching my way, to give signs that I want to learn. So I'd say I learned cross stitch and things like that through them, and I just loved what they did, and they nurtured me quietly and not sort of directly, but I feel like they were leaving planting seeds in me without really and I think that is a real Māori thing to do, to allow the student the freedom to grow, and offering them, sort of nurturing them on the side, and I understand why that is now that I've sort of been doing this for a long time now. It's because it's a very hard path to follow. It requires a lot of time and commitment to it, and honing your skills on your own, So, yeah, that's sort of the beginning of it. Yeah.
I was thinking about the transition from moving from Aotearoa to Hawaii. And you said, there were other Māori there. Like, was that transition difficult for you, or was it just nice that there was kind of like, I don't know, did you feel connected right away when you arrived in Hawaii? Was it difficult? Were there a lot of people speaking that like, do you know what I mean? Were you in that environment, or you just happened to come across the cultural center and that's kind of where you really...
Yeah, so I was actually really sad to leave because we were so me and my younger sister were so involved in Te Ao Māori through our kura, through our school. And that was like our family. That was like our whānau. And so we were really, really sad to leave. And honestly, we had some negative thoughts about, sort of coming to Hawaii, and negative in that, like it's not home, So, but when we got there, I was lucky that I had a friend who I grew up with in New Zealand who had moved there previously. And so for me, it was a bit easier for that reason. But little did we know anything about it. And, the community that we moved into has a huge Polynesian population, a lot of Māori, a lot of everything. So that was really eye-opening. Because in New Zealand, where we lived, it's either Māori or Pākehā. And, it's predominantly Pākehā. So that was like, wow, this is like so different. And I've mentioned this before, growing up in New Zealand, I remember like my older siblings, they would always say like, you know, we're not Pacific Islanders or like older people. And so coming to Hawaii, like that, you know, all of these things, you know, that we would say in New Zealand were like shattered.
Right.
Like, no, we actually are. And you see that when you sort of live amongst each other and you realize like you're so similar. So I think it was easy. It was easier than I thought to really connect. But I think the challenge has always been retaining, you know, who we are as Māori. And so like we did have a, you know, it was good that we had other peers from New Zealand there as well. But yeah, not a lot of Māori spoke te reo. Like these two aunties, they did. But other than them, not a lot of Māori. Oh, maybe the older. Yeah, there was maybe like a handful of kaumatua that spoke Māori. But you know, everyone else didn't. So that was sort of different for me because I was a young kid who did grow up speaking Māori, and there really wasn't anyone around for me to speak to.
Yeah, I was going to say, so then how did you keep up the reo? How did you keep up the language?
So
like all these years.
Yeah, I think my reo in terms of speaking definitely diminished a lot and has diminished over the years because of not speaking. But I've never lost my ability to understand te reo. I don't know why. I don't know how. I do like, wow, that's crazy. But yeah, I've just never lost it. I've never forgotten.
Cool.
So I'm grateful for that.
I was thinking about how you initially started learning off the aunties, and I was wondering about the process of choosing the right plant for weaving, like because that also would have been a learning factor, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to watch, but then when did you realize actually there's certain plants that are better for this or better for that?
So I was like much older in my journey. I was in my 20s when I learned that. When I was in Hawaii and I was sort of self-guiding. The two aunties never wove with natural fibers. So it was mainly like wool and things like that. So I would follow this book and I would go and use what people in the Pacific Islands use. So it's mainly pandanus. So that's what I would go and use. And so I learned a lot about that, and it's very different to harakeke. But it is very similar to other plants, you know. So I'm in my, you know, I go through my teenage years. I move to New York. I go to school. I realize that that's not the school for me. And then I move home to go to a Māori art school. And this is where I really learn about the materials. So my teacher at this time, who was my first real teacher in terms of weaving, Tina Wirihana. And so while I'm there, I'm just exposed to like this, you know, huge spectrum of weaving materials that Māori used. And, you know, growing up, you know, people only know like harakeke, but there's tons of fibers that Māori used, and a lot of them are related to plants that are used in other Pacific Islands. So yeah. So anyways, when it comes to harakeke and choosing the right harakeke, you know, Māori have a vast knowledge of harakeke. Our ancestors had a vast understanding of their properties, and they're not all the same. Like our ancestors were scientists. They had a name for everything. They knew what they were good for. They knew everything about them. And that's probably become one of my most favorite things about weaving. I love nature. I love plants. I absolutely love plants. I love learning how beneficial they are and how each variety is so different, and how our ancestors capitalized on those different properties for their survival and for their, to make their lives easier. So I mainly weave muka. Muka is the fiber, and so that is a particular kind of harakeke, and there's numerous varieties of them, and like they're all used for different things. Some fibers are long, some fibers are stronger than others, some fibers can be processed to become very white and silky. So depending on what you're making, whether you're making something very decorative and beautiful and soft, or are you making something practical and sturdy and meant to be long lasting and worn and used. So I love all of this. I absolutely love all of this, and it sort of helps me realize how amazing and incredible our ancestors were. That we're so intelligent, and it's weird to say that, but I have to say it because we are sort of raised around people who say things that belittle us, and native, savage, uneducated, so learning these things about our ancestors really shuts down all of those things we hear growing up, or absorb subliminally from our colonizers, and really uplifts our own thinking of ourselves. So that's one of those things that does it for me, learning really in depth about these art forms.
I've heard you say that it is a way of life, right? It is a way of life. So, and you've already alluded to it in a way. When we think about, traditional Māori practices and beliefs, like how do you continue to incorporate that, not just in your art, but in your everyday life, things that you do, perhaps spaces that you move in?
It takes intention to do so, and it's always our capacity to do more grows as we do it more. So actually during the pandemic has been a really, amazing opportunity for me to really, in contrast to before the pandemic, it was mainly my livelihood, what I do, it's mainly applied to like my livelihood, but during the pandemic I said, I don't want this to just be my livelihood. I want this to be, my life and everyday life. I want what I do to be reflected in all things that I do, and not just in certain aspects or spaces that exist in my life. So either a class or a wānanga or, like spaces like that. We got to be more intentional, and if Te Ao Māori is going to be embraced fully by our people. Like, it takes us to, make that decision to, sort of bring it more into our everyday life and not into just these sort of spaces, temporary
Mm.
spaces.
Mm.
So during the pandemic, I made a decision like, hey, like, I didn't own anything that I made. I didn't have anything of my own that I've even made, that I've owned. Everything was sort of made for other people. So I was like, when people come to my house, I want them to say like, oh, okay, this looks like Hone would live here. Not like, oh, it's empty. There's
Yeah.
no weaving. There's no art. There's nothing. So during the pandemic, I said, I'm not gonna take any more work. This is a good time for me to just focus on me and build my own space, my sanctuary, a place that is a reflection of who I am inside. So that's what I've been doing. And I still feel like, this isn't enough. This isn't enough for me, like in embracing and sort of like living my dream, really, living who I am. So, little by little though, and I think it's sort of like it's the same as weaving. You just got to do it. It doesn't matter
Mm.
how much it is, but the more you do it, the more you can do, the more productive you are, the more, the better at it you get.
Mm.
So this is new for me, sort of making things for my everyday life,
Yeah.
not just making it to be an art piece to hang on my wall, but actually use the things that I'm making. And another aspect of that is te reo. So not just using te reo in these spaces, actually every day using, speaking the reo and, yeah, being more intentional.
I love it. I love it. Oh man, so inspirational. Weaving, you do fashion design, you
Mm,
design, you make clothes that you wear now with the pandemic,
yeah,
handmade threads, hats, quilts, upholstery. I mean,
everything. Yeah,
you are not just, and I guess that's what I want people to realize is that you're not like incorporating, your beliefs and these traditional practices and just like you're more than just this amazing weaver, I guess everything interweaves in your life, right? But it just kind of brings it back to that core up anyways.
yeah,
Getting
it
a bit
all. Yeah,
serious,
you're
right?
right.
Like,
It
do you
is.
know what I
It
mean?
starts
It's
here. It
just so
starts.
cool. Like,
Yeah, it starts inside. It starts with our
mm,
intentions inside, and it radiates outwards.
mm,
But yep, sewing, they're all interconnected, but
mm,
the sewing I did is from my mum.
mm,
My mum I grew up my mum sewing and making everything, and it was just the era, they
right.
did everything. So yeah.
You know, just to break a little bit from the art and the design and things that you
Mm-hmm.
create, I was wondering about Maori performance.
Mm.
What is a favorite waiata that you have? And I know there's probably way too many, probably like you can't decide, but if there was one that kind of speaks to you, that is always kind of that's your go-to waiata, what would that be?
I mean, that's a hard question. I have so many favorites, but one that I've taught people over the years, um, is He Kākano Aho. Um, just a beautiful song that reminds us of who we are and where we
Mm,
come from and the greatness we come from,
mm,
and it's it's easy to sometimes, in this world, as Māori, as minorities, as Indigenous people, it's easy to sort of lose sight of who we actually are. So I love that song. It's an incredible song. It's the composition of the song lyrically and the composition musically is just always gonna be a legendary song.
Okay, and then in terms of actual performance, do you have a favorite, dance? Yeah, I know. I mean, is it like the
Oh,
haka? I
so
mean,
many.
like because you are a performer, you
Yeah.
sing,
So
you do
mhm.
everything. So what is
Yeah,
your
actually,
favorite?
Moteatea is my favorite.
Mm,
I love the traditional chant. Moteatea is the traditional chant. That's my favorite to listen to
mm,
and to watch. Um, I love all of it, but that is really I've loved Moteatea since I was a kid.
mm.
I love performing Moteatea. It's my actual, favorite thing.
Okay, I want to talk about your correct me because I might be saying this wrong. Your bag of Kaikah, your bag, Maori
Yeah.
word for scraps, right?
Yeah,
So I
so
want to,
yeah.
yeah, tell me about this, what it is and how you use everything. You don't want to waste anything that
Yeah.
so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well that goes back to, the sort of what's the word? The values and
Mm,
morals that we grew up learning as kids,
mm,
Māori. You don't waste anything.
mm,
You you look after everything you have. You never waste anything.
mm,
So it goes back to that, and that's one of the aspects of weaving, that connects to weaving as well. You never waste anything. It's a taonga,
mm,
so these resources are precious, and it um you don't mistreat or what's the word? You don't disregard
mm,
um the tikanga, which means like the practices or the protocol, or the ways that we harvest them or the methods that we use to collect them. You don't disregard the tikanga, which is take only what you need,
mm,
and you look after the plants, you care for the plants as you're harvesting them, and you take great care in your harvesting of them. And when you take those resources, you also do the same. You look after them and you don't waste them, because if you waste
mm,
the resources, you're going to go back again, get some more, and that is not caring for them. That is
mm,
that is misusing them. And plants need to be nurtured and allowed time to regenerate and regrow. So we have all of these protocols. So this sort of goes back to kids.
mm.
Kids, you learn this. And so I have this bag, that I collect all the offcuts when I'm weaving. And I some people might say they're like, it's sort of hoarding, and I'm like, it's not. It's not
Right,
hoarding whatsoever.
right, right.
Yes, I do have these bags of like, short
Mm,
weaving fibers, but also I live in a place where I don't have access
right.
I so I look after them. And my first teacher, Tina, she would give me all sorts of bags of, you know, muka, which is the fibers that had already been prepared and whatever. And so she never wasted that, and she like offered them to me, which I thought was so, kind, absolutely kind of her, because, you know, I didn't have access to all of these things when I was learning. So anyway, so I have this bag of scraps, and if I can use them in some way, I'm gonna do it. And yes, it takes a lot of time, where I could be like spending time actually making bigger things, or, fancy things, but it's important for me to use what I have to the best of my abilities, and never waste it. Never, never, never. It's so precious.
I get it.
I
It
was going
makes
to say, I
sense.
do the same thing with fabric. So I do the same
Right.
thing with fabric. Yeah.
So living in Japan, how has that changed? You've already mentioned, you don't have access to certain resources. So how has your creative process changed in terms of living here in Japan?
Well, I'm lucky because I have quite a large, what's the word, collection of fibers that I've collected over the years. So I actually have the opposite problem. I'm like, I need to use all of this. It's too much. I need to make space. But they have harakeke here, and so that's been awesome to see. But we haven't been able to go out really and sort of do that. They have, raupo, which is another weaving plant. When I came here, I wanted to sort of interact more with, traditional textile makers, but that hasn't happened, and that's okay. So I stick to my path, and keep going and keep making, and yeah, I'm lucky that I have the resources ready to use. But I am definitely inspired by Japanese culture and how traditional. I've sort of spoken about this on my Instagram, how traditional Japanese culture is still prevalent in everyday life,
Right.
in everyday life. Traditional Japanese culture is a part of, everything. You see it everywhere, and I'm inspired by that, because as Maori, that's not always, we could do more. I'm like, I could do more to bring our traditional culture into everyday life. So that's something that I've taken on for
Yeah,
myself.
because I saw that you recently made a hunten
Yeah,
traditional, a piece of clothing, traditional piece of clothing from the Edo period, right? That was
yeah,
cool. That was
yeah.
really cool. And have you made other, what other types of Japanese clothing have inspired you, or kind of get
Oh,
you?
all of it inspires me. But I am careful. Like, I'm not gonna try and like copy them. I'd love to actually learn from
Right.
someone, but I'm like, as a maker, I'm like, okay, well, I really want a hunten. Nothing comes in my size here, so
You have to
I
make
have
it
to make
yourself.
have to make it myself. So I'm making it the way that I can make it, but I'd love to actually learn properly how they make it. Um, but at the same time, like, I don't want to be like just making Japanese things and pretending like I know. I don't. That was just something for myself, but I'd love, what I'd really love is to actually learn from actual Japanese. But I can be inspired, and I'm very cautious, because a lot of artists, do this, and I have no problem with it. But for me, I'm careful that just because I'm here in Japan doesn't mean I'm going to like, you know, adopt Japanese things. I'm Maori. I know who I am, and I can appreciate Japanese things and be inspired by
Right.
them, but I don't necessarily feel like I need to, wear a kimono or like. But this, I do like the hanten. I think that
Right.
was something that I really liked because, it's a practical thing in the winter
Yeah.
and they're cool. I think they're
Yeah,
super cool.
absolutely. I agree with you. I agree with you. I was wondering about you've mentioned not having a lot of your own work,
Yeah.
but now you're working on that. But do you collect pieces of art from other artists that inspire you or that you kind of look up to? Like, do you have a collection of maybe in storage, if not here in Japan?
Yeah, no, I do. And they're mainly from very close friends. I don't, not that I wouldn't like to own pieces by people that I'm inspired by, but
Right.
I really cherish my friendships and people that have come into my life and are special to me. So for me, I do have pieces by people like that. And yeah, do you want so yes, I do.
That's
Yes,
cool.
I do.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering
Yeah.
about that. I was like, oh, I wonder if he has it in storage. Maybe not here in Japan, but in
Yeah,
storage
no, I
somewhere.
do. They're in my house. And it's important for me to always remember my connections to people and why they're special to me. I think I get asked this a lot actually, like who am I inspired by? Who inspires me as an artist? And actually, I'm not really inspired by work. I'm inspired by people. I'm inspired by their stories. I'm inspired by their examples. You know, good people who sort of inspire me to be good. A good person and kind and generous. Like that is a huge thing for me. Kindness and generosity is important in this art form, I believe. So yeah, I do actually like that's one of the most asked questions from people, and I'm like, actually, I'm not really, like, yes, I am inspired by people's work, but the most inspiring thing to me is like just people.
I appreciate your honesty. I love that. Thank you for sharing. I was wondering, I saw that in, was it 2016? You were in a wearable, you were one of 8
Oh yeah.
artists that were part of that Wearable Arts show, and you got to showcase some of, like fashion design. Have
Yeah.
you done a lot of shows like that, or was that really kind of
Hmm.
like your first? Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the first one of that, sort of like that. So that was like that was in Hawaii, and it was for and mainly Hawaiian, but it was there were invitations to other Pacific or Indigenous artists or designers to showcase some work. So that was my first time doing that. But I had in New Zealand in 2011 and 2012, I believe, that I was a part of like a fashion competition, um, Pacifica, Style Pacifica, which was in Manukau. And another one was Cult Couture, which was also in Auckland as well. So a couple times, yeah, it was really exciting, really awesome to sort of apply um, traditional techniques to modern, the modern form. But it's something I want to do more of. yeah, definitely something I want to do more. But what people don't realize with fashion is it is a lot of work. It
Right.
is a lot of work to hand make things. And my 2016, that was Mamo. That's um, what the event was called. Um, I didn't have a lot of time to really prepare for that, and my two little hands could only make so much. So it definitely was not something that I am like, I stand upon and like, this is my work. But, I was happy to do it. It was great to do it. But one good thing that came out of that event were these pew earrings that became really popular. Like, I didn't even like, when I made them, I was just like, they were just an accessory for my runway. And, I gave away all the pairs and like, here, have them. I'm like, not really thinking of selling them, but they sort of like, spread, and other people were inspired by them and created, their own versions of them. And, you'll see them all around even still today. I have, I have a lot of things to do. And, so that's on my list. It's sort of low down on my list of things that I spend time making. But I'm really proud of that, and I'm happy that people love them. So at least, one good thing came out of it.
I was wondering, what are some challenges? Oh, maybe you don't have any, but what are some challenges that you face bringing your art to new people, like bringing your work to new audiences? Navigating those spaces that perhaps is like, whoa, this is out of my comfort zone. Like, for you, what are some challenges, or have been some challenges, if any?
Oh, honestly, I don't even think of it. I don't think about other people. I know it's weird to say, but I don't. I think about, what I like and what edifies me. I don't really place it. I have in the past, and, for me, it's a reclamation of this art form for myself. I started this art form because there was a connection to me. It had nothing to do with, what other people think of it or whether they like it. And in my journey, I have definitely had or experienced that where I'm, everyone has to sell themselves, sell, their creations. And, we want them to be received and to, for people to admire the work that has gone into it and the thought. But at this stage in my life and my career as a artist, a weaver, textile maker, like it's something I don't actually really think about that much. I love it when people love it, and if people don't, I understand, because art has to speak deeper to people, and it's not going to speak deeply to everyone. It can't speak deeply to everyone. Everyone is so different, and everyone is looking for this deep connection to something. And I guess it's not always about everyone. It's about, even just one person. So, but one way that I like to sort of appeal to people or share with people is the process. Is the process and the time and the craft that goes into something beyond words. It's beyond words. So, making videos has been a huge part of my journey in sort of building connections with people. It's not something I've done lately, but it is something I definitely love. I am drawn to processes. That's my favorite part of creating, is how things are made and what goes into it. So that's really connected me to a lot of people.
Is it difficult for you to put a price on your work? I mean, I know we've talked about, part of it is your livelihood, but now, you've kind of moved and it's bigger now, right? There's a bigger part to it. So I was wondering how difficult it is for you to put a price on your work. I mean, like, you seem like someone who's just so comfortable in what you do, and you're just kind of like, meh, this is what it's gonna. You're like, do you know what I mean? Like, no, this is how it's gonna be. I'm not gonna stress about it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. No, it really depends. I don't have a problem putting prices on it, but there are things that come into play. If you're selling it on an online store, it's easy to just put a price on it.
right.
If your mate comes, if your family member comes, I can still put a price on it, but there are other things to take into account. I really love my cousin,
Yeah.
there's,
I really hate this cousin, so
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
No, yeah. So, like, there's all of these contexts. Also, when you're commissioned to do something, like, being commissioned for a specific project, is a little bit more, is harder, because you're working with someone to create perhaps their vision of what they would want, and the time, and because they don't know what it takes to create something. They know what they want and what they want it to look like, but to say, like, well, that color, like that color dye, like, it's actually really hard to get. So, like, this is what it would take. So, pricing it and being able to, like, explain to them why. Some people don't care. Some people are like, oh, yeah, I trust you. That's cool. Other people are like, can you wait, why? Why is that? So that's sort of hard to do. So the answer would be, it's not really black and white. Yes, if you have a shop, easy. If you have a shop, there's no like comment like, wait, why is this price this? Like, the price is the price. You buy it, you don't. But there's a lot of other ways that we have to be open to, other ways of buying our work that we need to be open to as well. And so it is always different, I feel. Also, as an artist, sometimes maybe you want to just get rid of something. Like, I just want it to sell. I've had it for a little while, I want it to sell. Or maybe you're okay with, it not selling. Maybe you're waiting for the right person. I do know people like that. It's really important to them that their pieces actually go to people that they can connect with. So it's very, what's the word? It's not black and white.
Right.
Yeah.
But
no, I don't have a problem I don't have a problem talking price. Yeah.
It's good to know.
I used to. Yes, I used to. Yeah.
I was wondering, I imagine, just like outside of commission work, when you are creating these personal pieces, Are there pieces that bring more joy or maybe sadness? Or I'm wondering if is it mood that kind of like, is that, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I get what you mean.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I wonder about, just the blood, sweat, and tears. That's dramatic, I know. But, as an artist, it goes into every piece. Because I feel like you're like perfection, part of it, like those little intricate designs to a piece. Like, I wonder about just that, how much of yourself that goes into that. And are there times when it's totally draining, or are there times when there's just so much joy that you just can't, like?
Yeah, it's definitely an emotional process. It's not like, I'm going to make this thing, I'm just going to go through it and do it. And, maybe some people do that. Personally, I have to get in the zone. I have to be in a space where I'm just fully, my thoughts are on that piece. So I pretty much work piece by piece. I try not to. I have during the pandemic for myself, worked on multiple things at the same time, but typically I just work on one project at a time. I don't sort of overlap projects. And that's so that I can be, fully mentally in, thinking about what I'm creating and that it connects to the person, who it's for. So, it definitely is an emotional thing. And I believe it is a spiritual thing as well, because, you're being sort of led. Like in the process, sometimes I receive inspiration randomly when I least expect it. And so, you have to be open and in a space where you can receive that guidance. We're talking about ancestral art. It's not, like it's more than art. This is genealogy. This is something spiritual that is being passed down to someone. So like having that in your hands and being able to like create for that purpose, you have to be sort of in tune to those things. Like you don't know really when a person contacts you, you don't know, like they're not explaining every single thing. They're just saying like, I'm looking for this and that, and they'll give you a dialogue about, sometimes more than others, but there are other things deeper that are happening here, and you sort of have to tap into that. And as the artist, as the person who holds the knowledge of creating this or creating something that embodies everything that the person is looking for or needs, and not just for them, but for their posterity, because it's something that they'll pass on as well. So, a lot of emotion and spiritual energy is put into this. And yes, when I am finished with it, it's hard to say goodbye. It's hard to. Other artists don't like, and I've heard this like, don't get connected to it, don't, But I can't help it because I've put so much time and energy and thought and everything to it. But I am happy that that it's for someone who will cherish it and love it.
Oh, just listening to various parts of your journey that you've shared today. Like I'm thinking about, we always talk about the value of knowing who you are, knowing your history, really holding on to that language. You've mentioned, we as people are storytellers naturally, right? So,
Yeah.
as I've been listening to you, I'm just like, man, these are things that we need to continue to talk about, right? Like the value of knowing who you are, knowing the journey that your ancestors took, to get to from one place to another. I'm just like so moved by things that you've shared. And I was, yeah, like knowing your history and your language, how has that really helped you just to keep continuing this work and to keep making those connections between the past and where you are now as an artist?
Well, it's sort of crazy to say, and I've seen this on TikTok. A couple people have said, like, like people said Te Reo would never, I'd never get a job in Te Reo, or I'd never make a living in Te Reo. Like I feel the same way. Like with, my culture has taken me all over the world. I've lived in all places, and every place that I've gone, my culture has been my lifeline. So it's just, who said that?
Probably colonizers.
Yeah.
Probably that's
like,
that colonizer. It's that Western like mentality, right? That
yeah,
Eurocentric think. I mean, and it.
yeah. And I've heard it in my own family.
Mm,
And like for me, I am truly. I don't think about it that way that much because
mm,
I've always believed in it. I've always believed
mm,
that our culture is so special. I've never sort of doubted that.
mm,
But yeah, if I look back and I say like, wow, so everywhere that I've been, like, my culture has, been a part of my time there. And,
mm,
there's never been a place that I've been that I haven't, been able to, um, have my culture, be a part of, my culture, whether it be like through, you know, connecting with other Māori there and, having our gatherings and, or like my art or, performing. I've always performed in every place that I've been.
mm.
There's always been an opportunity to perform. And so, like, for me, it's who, what better way to, live life than to sort of have your culture, you know, as a tool, as a, you know, sort of something that enables you to do anything you want, do anything you
Mm,
want, no matter where you are in the world. And I think nowadays, like we do see that, like
mm,
nowadays, and with social media, we do see so many examples of how our culture has taken individuals, you
mm,
know, far and wide, and to the highest peaks, and the highest successes, and we're going to see more and more of it. It's just it's inevitable.
mm. I was wondering if you have, if perhaps in the future you would like to open a shop or a gallery where you can showcase, just because you're not just one thing, as I've mentioned already, there are
Yeah.
just so many layers to your identity and who you are as an artist. Do you
Mhm.
have anything like, is that kind of like
Yeah.
a dream?
Yeah, so many dreams and aspirations that I'm getting up there in age, but you know, I I there's always time. I don't
Mm,
feel like I'm in a hurry
mm,
to like be anything, or when I say be anything, or like have a clothing line, or like I'm
mm,
not in a hurry to do all of that. I am in a hurry to learn and experience and hone my craft more. Like that's my goal every day. Like there's not enough time in the day to really perfect what I know and hone my skills. That's what I do feel a time limit on. But yes, I would love to have a shop and I get a lot of people. I'm so grateful for all the people that support and follow my work. I do feel a little bad that not everyone can buy things. But like I said, I own it's only my two hands. I wish I had, six kids to teach and do this. But no, it's just me. So, yeah, one of my greatest goals is to be able to, teach others and to be able to build skills in people and, be able to nurture younger generations that want to pursue this. Honestly, I'm like, who would want to pursue it? In this day and age, it's so different. It's a whole different kind of learning, and it takes a lot of time and energy to be good at it. But I know that there are a lot of young people that are hungry to learn, and don't have access to teachers. So I'd love to do that one day. But yep, all of the above: shop, clothing line, online shop, fashion shows, you name it. But
that's so cool.
It's coming one day.
We'll be watching for that. You mentioned like weaving books, right? Like learning from weaving books. And I was wondering, I know you said you're hands-on, so perhaps do you think that perhaps maybe someone can do create a weaving book where, I don't know, do you think that could be something you would also do? Because I feel like there's just so much knowledge that you have to pass on to the next generation and to share. Like perhaps years from now, there'll be someone holding a book learning how to weave Hone Bailey. This is a book that Hone Bailey, I know you said you're more hands-on, but maybe it could be like a visual type.
Like a video.
I mean, kind of. I mean, I don't
YouTube
know.
videos.
Yeah, like maybe creating more of that content, but I get it because there's only one Hone Bailey.
No. Well, the other thing is there are there are legendary weavers who have already done this,
right?
And have.
But maybe your particular kind of like style. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, potentially. Yes to it. I would say, I would be open to it. But I always recommend people to, the people who have gone before me. The people who have gone before me, they're, have much more experience than I do. So if anyone wants to learn, I'm always like, go here, go there, go to the source. They are people who have held the knowledge longer than I have and have much more to offer and experience to them. Yeah, I'm open to people learning from me, but why not learn from it's always looking up. For us in Maori culture, it's always acknowledging the ones who have gone before. So I have plenty of time in my life to have an influence or to help guide people. But for now, I definitely encourage people to look to those who have done it for a long time and who are actual leaders in this craft.
Solid.
If that makes sense to people.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
And so, do you have a book recommendation, or, like a go-to in terms
so
of
this
weaving?
book is this was the book. Well, this is the version, a newer version of the book that my dad gave me when I was 14 from the library. So mine was like a green book, but this was reprinted. So it's Maori Weaving with Erenora Puketapu Heted. And incredible book, absolutely incredible. A lot of information in it for anyone who wants to start weaving, or sort of build their collection of weaving resources. There's so many. But I remember having this book for so many years. I feel bad that I actually lost the copy. I had it for years. I lost the copy that my dad, because I never returned it to the library.
Oh, you're one of them, okay.
So I still had the book after like years. But so going back to your korero about people wanting to learn. So Erenora Puketapu Hetet, her daughter Veranora Hetet, she has a online weaving school that can be accessed by anyone around the world. But I really sort of have a lot of love for their whānau because of this book and because of their love for teaching and how it sort of was so crucial in my own learning, especially when I had no teacher to teach me. So this will always be a book that I just will have so much love for. The path of learning a traditional craft is not easy. It's not always accessible to find a teacher, or it's just sometimes it just doesn't happen for people. And so I'm grateful for my path. I wouldn't have changed anything that happened on my path of learning. And I've had so many teachers. So that's another question I get asked. Like you've asked me, like, who taught me? Like so many people. I've mentioned a couple, but there are so many more that have helped nurture me in my path. So yeah, whatever access you can get to any resource, get it, find it, use it, and you'll accumulate more resources or connect with someone that's right for you. But yeah.
Man, Hone, I've learned so much from you today. Seriously, I've learned so much from you today. And, as blown away. And, before we wrap up the podcast, I really just wanted to just say thank you for sharing a bit of your craft, your art, a bit of you on the show today. Like, as I've said right throughout, there are just so many layers to your, so many layers to your artwork and your craft. And hopefully today people have seen some of those different layers. But just the gems that you've dropped today, I mean, it's really inspirational. And I love that you're just doing your thing. You're out there just doing you and inspiring.
Just being me.
Just being you and inspiring, not just, Maori people, not just your people, but just everyone. Like, I know you have a lot of followers who follow your Instagram and, see the works that you're making, and that's really cool. But just thank you. It is a blessing. Like, I feel so blessed that I've crossed paths with you, and I know that the pandemic kind of like shut a lot of our stuff down, but it truly is an honor to just have shared the stage with you, and you've taught us waiata and just, man, your passion and all of that for your culture. Like, it's such an honor to have been under your tutelage, even though it was a short time. You know what I mean? So I truly appreciate that, and I'm just grateful and thankful, yeah, to have crossed paths with you. And as we wrap up, before we wrap up the show, like I said, you've dropped so many valuable gems today. But I was wondering, like, as we wrap up and we think about young, rangatahi who are out there looking to, embark on a career, or maybe take a pathway that, leads to different art forms, what advice or encouragement would you have for them, as you kind of like reflect on your years coming up as an artist?
Just keep going. Follow the voice inside of you that's telling you or guiding you. And no matter what anyone says, because I've had people from the very beginning discouraging me from doing this. Do not listen to anyone else but the voice in you guiding you. It's it's guiding you there for a reason. So that's one. Two, don't ever give up. Keep going. Keep making. Keep doing it. Number three is, we live in an age where we can connect to anyone, really. So my third advice would be to reach out to someone, someone who does it, someone who you can learn from. Reach out to them and, ask them if, you'll ask them for help or advice, or, if they'll be willing to guide you, tutor you in some way, like, and if people don't respond, like, it's okay. Don't let it get you down. Like, someone will come along who's meant to be a teacher, guide, guidance to you, and it'll be the right person. If anyone, like, I've offered this, on my Instagram, if anyone wants any advice or ask any questions, or, like, I'm more than happy to help. So you can reach out to me anytime or about anything regarding my mahi. Honestly, I want to, but because I live in another country, like, it's hard for me to tutor people, like, in, face to face. But I'm so happy to provide any resources or any information, videos or anything to anyone. So just keep going, and your path will come, your path, your journey will become clearer to you the longer you do it, and the more dedication and time you dedicate to it. So yeah, I'm so happy for anyone who wants to take this journey. Yeah. Rosa, thank you so much for allowing me to share a little bit, about who I am and what I do. I don't really talk on my own Instagram or share anything, so I appreciate these opportunities to talk, and I feel comfortable talking with you because we know each other, and I love you, and we've had in real life, so we know each other, and yeah, and I want to thank you too, so thank you for loving my culture and representing my culture here in Japan, performing your beautiful voice, and that's important for other people in other countries to see who we are and what our culture is. So I really thank you. And there are other people who are not Maori who also represent our culture here and share it so beautifully. And so thank you so much.
Oh, get emotional. Let me stop. Stop.
Yeah.
No, I
But
appreciate
yeah,
it.
I hope that we are able, now that things are opening up, that we can, continue to, or resume
Oh,
our
hopefully,
wānanga again and
hopefully,
continue that.
I think we've all we need to sing again and dance again.
Yeah,
We've forgotten
yes.
everything, and
It
and
was just
and
an awesome space for us to get together and
mm,
to connect, in that space. So I miss that so much. That's been
yeah,
so hard not being able to do that. So
hard out.